What's up everybody, I'm Derek, this is Rocking eForge, and today I'm going to be making a twisting bar. So, let's get rocking. Alright, so we are starting with a 2-foot length of 1/2-inch square stock for this project. Alright, while I got the forge heating up, I'm going to measure that out and put a center punch mark at the point that's going to become the center, as well as 1 inch either side of that center punch mark. That's going to put about 2 inches in this little S-curve portion in the middle, and then I'm going to cut this and get this in the fire. All right, so I'm going to pull this out of the forge just to illustrate a point here. I'm using propane, which means I get a lot of heat strewn throughout the bar. The point, or the way you're going to get the best bend here is to isolate the heat within that first inch or two past the third dot from either end of the handle. So counting from the tip, you want to count 1, 2, 3, and then bend in this area. You want to concentrate as much heat in this spot as possible, and have the rest of the handle as cold as possible so that you don't end up with a banana. Now you people running coal are going to laugh at me, but if you're running a propane forge like I am, the best way to do this, one, I'm using mild steel here, don't do this with carbon, but the best way to do this is going to be quench that whole piece up to that dot and quench the other side so that all of your heat is concentrated in the point that you're trying to bend. Also take note, I've turned off one of my burners to concentrate the heat. And you want to get this pretty hot and do this pretty quickly. And I'm using the horn of the anvil here just as a bit of an aid, using my body weight. And then I'm going to have to hammer down on this with a piece of 1/4-inch flat stock stuck in here as kind of a wedge or a spacer in order to get that to this gap to the right width to twist 1/4-inch square stock. It also really pays to wear very thick welding gloves for this, because no matter how much you quench this, it is cool enough to touch with my bare skin, but all of the heat trapped in this area is going to travel up eventually. It's reached about this point. I can see it from the tempering colors. A cheap pair you can get at Lowe's or Harbor Freight should do the trick. And before I do any refinement on this bend, I'm going to actually get the second bend done so that I can refine both kind of at the same time. So I'm heating up right around that other dot on the flip side of what's going to become the bending bar, and I'm going to quench and bring it to the vise to lock it in and at least start this other bend. And that gets the full S-curve shape in before I do any kind of refinement. Now I'm quenching right now the parts of the piece that I don't want to bend yet, because this ended up shorter on this handle than the other, and I want to try to correct that. So I'm going to just bring it to the horn here. Just try to bend that. Yep, I should have known better than to do that. Now, how am I going to fix that? Hey, don't do what I just did. Make sure that if you're going to try to collapse this, the center portion is completely cooled, otherwise you're going to get the bend like I just did, because I wasn't thinking. I'm trying to get this portion of the bend to tighten up in order to push this handle that direction a little bit by forging kind of at an angle here, and I didn't have that supported, ended up bending that out. So I think the better way to do that would be to put that over the horn. I might try to use, if I have enough space, I don't think I do is the problem. Yeah, This would be great if you had like a hardy table, something that like basically looks like this with a hardy shank on the bottom that you could plop in your hardy hole and slide this over in order to refine each side. But alas, I do not have one of those, so I'm winging it. Now you get to see me figure out how to fix this live, because that curve is not what you want. I've got to heat this corner now, unbend that so that it's back straight, and then I can focus back on that. I've got it back closer, but I ran out of room here when I contacted that because this wanted to bend anyway. So I'm gonna avoid having you watch me fiddle around getting this back in line. Just know that I'm heating up, trying to isolate the heat to this portion, and then holding it like this on the anvil and pushing down on this lever and down on this lever in order to force that to bend backwards. It's been some really interesting quenches trying to get that done because my bucket is too small, but it seems to be working out all right. And we picked that bend back up, but that's okay. We've established how to correct that. This will be an easy project, I said. It'll only take me like 25 minutes. Yeah, huh? Why don't you do that? Some part of me realizes that I'm going to use a spacer, 1/4 inch spacer here and a 3/8 inch spacer here to hammer down and sandwich everything together. And all of that curve should work its way out. And that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to do one more iteration of trying to get this corner a little further that direction, and we should be good to go from there. Yeah, that works great. All right, so what I did there, and that helped out a lot. If you end up with a curve that is too far one direction or biased too far to one side, i.e. you've got a short handle, bend that out to say, I don't know, about a 30 to 45 degree angle, any kind of angle out up here, right? So that it kind of angles up like that. And then quench everything but the corner that you're trying to bend, and even quenching part of it so that you only isolate that heat right there, bend that down, and that'll bring everything kind of a little closer to, one, it'll thin that gap down right here, and two, that helped me kind of correct the extra curve that we had in this middle portion a little bit, and moved that handle out that direction all kind of in one go. It ain't perfect, but we're a lot closer. I'm gonna straighten this portion out now by just quenching the whole S curve, pulling that out just a little bit, and then we'll be able to move on to the actual refining process after this very long detour of trying to correct a mistake that I made. Now I'm gonna quench the handle so that with my very thick gloved hand I can hold this, grab my one wedge, and I'm gonna preferentially hammer on this corner to try to close everything up. Before that gets too thin, looks too thin already, honestly. Yep. Okay. I'm gonna wedge that in there at the thinnest part. Try to close that so it pinches. Well, it didn't pinch. If I had 3/8 inch flat stock doing the same thing as I've got on this side, on the other side would be perfect, and then you could just hammer the whole thing down into submission, keep getting it very hot at these corners, and it should work right away. But I don't, so I'm winging it, as per usual. All right, nice. I'm gonna go ahead and work this thing down to 3/8 inch all the way down the length so that I can wedge it in there, because trying to close that up with it bouncing back and forth is not gonna work. But the 1/4 inch is done, which is good. Ooh, that was hot. That hurt. How to keep it in there. I lied. Let's just do that. Hey, it may be janky, but if it works, right? If it looks dumb but it works, it's not dumb. This looks dumb, but it works, so it's not dumb. I'm gonna do one more heat just to refine that. I'm gonna cool this off so I can grab it. And I'm going to flip that over so that I'm holding on to it like this with the 1/4 inch side up top, so I can try to get this slight curve out of it by hammering down this direction onto the flat surface of the anvil. Then we'll go ahead and pull everything out and even everything up this direction, because obviously it's got a little kick off from the axis, but all in all, this is working quite well. If I can get it off the 1/4 inch flat stock now. Twist, that works. One more heat. Now you can't tell, but I'm filming from inside the back of my truck under my canopy because it's raining outside. Let's try that on the 3/8. Little bit of wiggle. Let's do this cold. Okay. I picked up a bend here in the handle, which is fine. It's kind of the nature of how that works. I'm gonna heat this portion up and correct that, and then we're gonna tighten this up just a little bit, but I think we're close in, and I think you've got the gist at this point. So I'm gonna move on to the next step. All right, so I brought this to the post vise, and I'm going to take a chisel and really, really lightly, I'm doing this fairly cold, right? It's not glowing. It's still pretty hot. But I'm just gonna put a little bit of an angle, open that up ever so slightly, and I'm really trying to make really fine adjustments, which is, it's still very hot, but which is why I'm doing it cold. And that kind of proves the point, in that you want it to slide smoothly over your stock so that you're not struggling to try to get it wedged in there. And you, anywhere in that spot now is anywhere from a little bit tighter than a 1/4 inch to a little bit wider than a 1/4 inch, so that if you haven't forged perfectly down to a 1/4 inch square, like the flat stock that I used to size this, it's got a little bit of tolerance so that you can quickly seat it over the 1/4 inch piece that you've forged out and then twist. I took the liberty of doing the same thing. I kind of ended up naturally with a taper on the other one just by straightening out that handle. Worked out perfect. I just left it that way so that I could wedge 3/8 inch all the way to the inside of that gap, and it works out perfect. All right, so if you are just looking for a quick tool that you can get twisting with, this is all you need to do. But I am me, and I want to make this a little prettier before I hang it on my wall as a tool that I'm going to use. So I'm going to forge a little loop for hanging it on my wall, and then do a couple decorative twists in each handle, and we will finally then call it a day. So let's keep on rocking. All right, so I've got the loop done. Now I'm gonna knock down the corners on the handle portions, parts that I'm actually going to be grabbing. And then we'll put in a simple split twist on both sides, and we'll call it good. And I'm knocking down the corners here. Just to make it a little more comfortable to hold on to while I'm twisting. I'm just gonna keep a couple 3 or 4 inches for the twist, and we'll call it good. And cool this end off, spin it around, knock off the corners on the other, and then I'll chisel everything all at once. And I'm using my bending wrench that I made in a previous video. Check out the link in the upper right hand corner to see how I did that. Half. And full. And back it up. Good. And then I'm going to go use the trusty stump and half an axe handle just to straighten the twist. Perfect. And then I'm going to brush off the part that's hot. And I'm actually, now that I think about it, I'm gonna go ahead and just file down each of those corners because I don't want those biting into a piece if I'm twisting it and for whatever reason it ends up kind of catching on the corners. I just want to file them down just a little bit so that they're not contacting whatever pieces I end up twisting. And then finally I'll touch mark this baby right in the middle. Alrighty, and that is going to do it for today's video. This thing works like a charm. I'm pretty happy with the way it looks and turned out. Ignoring all of the trouble that I had with the bends, this would be a pretty simple afternoon project, especially if you didn't want to do any of the decorative elements to it. So it's a great thing to have on hand if you're frequently twisting specific size stock. Now, the book that I got this project idea from was Backyard Blacksmith, which suggests that if you're going to be twisting 1/2 inch square or bigger, you should go all the way up to 1 inch square bar. I don't know the last time you tried to bend 1 inch square bar, no matter how hot it was, but I have my doubts that I could get a 1/2 inch channel or gap in 1 inch square bar without a full-on like hydraulic jig. Maybe it's possible. Let me know in the comments if you have done this type of bending bar out of 1 inch square. The only thing I could think of is you'd have to start with at least a 5-foot section just to get enough leverage to bend that thing around. But hey, maybe it's possible. I will not be trying it. I'll let you know that now. So anyway, that is going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, leave a comment, hit subscribe, ring that notification bell. If you want to support me in the channel further, please consider becoming an honorary striker on my Patreon. That link is in the description below the video, or please consider becoming a member on my YouTube channel. And as always, keep on rocking. All right, so now I need to unbend this in order to get that straightened back out. So I gotta heat this spot, unbend. Oh no, look down and my mic is gone. And you want to get this pretty hot and do this pretty quickly. And then start over because you're, now I get to pull that out of the forge and quench it again because I only filmed with one camera. And in order to get me pulling it out of the forge, I got to do 1 clip. Quenching it, I gotta do 1 clip, and then I've gotta put it back in the forge, heat it back up, and prepare it so that I can get the shot bending it on the anvil. The things I do for YouTube.